Hi, good evening. This is Meredith Lego, and I'm doing a series of videos on Ascension science and mechanics that go into the expansion of consciousness. And a lot of the material that I share has been basically provided to me through channeled sessions that I'm able to do with kind of non-local or extra dimensional or interdimensional beings. And oftentimes I'm getting the information during or after meditation. Tonight, I'm going to be sharing with you content that is around the concept of a TriWave. Now, if you're new to this channel, I would encourage you to go back to the beginning because a lot of the content builds upon itself in terms of some of the mechanics around the quantum field, the concept of polarity of energies and whatnot. And there's concepts that get brought up in, future videos and stuff like that, essentially go and reference some of that earlier content. So in this particular video, again, it's about the concept called TriWave. Now, as I was meditating, I heard very distinctly the word TriWave. So 3 waves of energy, essentially. And when I heard it, I thought they were referencing perhaps rays, as in RAYS, so a ray of sun or a ray of energy. So that's what I interpreted originally. And essentially, before asking the question what a TriWave was, I actually heard the phrase tutelage of forgiveness. It was just kind of an odd phrase to hear. And I had to kind of look up what tutelage means because when I first heard it, I thought kind of sounds like the idea of having a tutor or something like that. But it does obviously get into a teaching concept. But one of the definitions I found was teaching, advice, or how to do something. So it was sort of how to do something and teaching around forgiveness. So I don't know if that was referencing some of the things I'm doing, or some of the teachers that I'm working with, the fact that they're teaching or advising around forgiveness. But that was an interesting statement that came up. So then I started this channeling session with what does the TriWave mean? So the TriWave is a form of vibrational charge created or manifest through light and sound frequencies. They are the underpinning inputs into the infinity road. The TriWave is a product of neutral charge frequency to eliminate polarity in frequencies. Magnetic and electrical balanced into neutrality. The force, that frequency tone that pushes the energy into a continuous self-sustained cycle. So let me kind of unpack that a little bit. So first of all, they basically said that it's a vibrational charge or a frequency charge that basically occurs through light and sound frequencies. They did say they're the underpinning inputs into the infinity road. And I believe this was coming in from essentially a collective consciousness. But what's interesting is that when I really began the whole channeling process, I was tuning into an Ascended Master. And this is Ascended Master Hilarion. Excuse me. And Ascended Master Hilarion actually helped me understand sort of the mechanics of how energy sort of rotates in and out of a torus electromagnetic field that exists really around everything in existence, everywhere from a human being to an atom to a universe. And basically it's in terms of how energy, in terms of the charges that go in and out between sort of a magnetic and electrical charge that's occurring in terms of how it moves basically in a field around you, and kind of what's helping that process is essentially a push and pull of energy. And so he ended up calling this concept the infinity road. And, it was very much an apropos statement, because if you kind of think about the idea of infinity, it's continuous looping energy. And what they're saying is that this TriWave, the TriWave, which essentially is produced from neutral charge frequency to eliminate polarity of frequencies or polarity of charges. So again, and I'll include references within the description where the concept of the infinity road and how the mechanics of how that works was first introduced. And I would recommend that you watch it if you're seeing this video for the first time. But essentially, you've got a being, let's say like a human or a planet or something like that, and essentially you're emitting an electromagnetic frequency around your sort of body, if you will. And the connection point of that is actually in what's called a 0 point or a neutral point, and it happens to be around the heart center. And in this point, when you get to the point where you're not necessarily emitting a electric or a magnetic charge, so you're kind of in the point of neutrality, is when you in many ways are able to achieve connection into the source field and more of a state of sort of experiencing of no time. And that's when you are in true neutrality. And not only are you in neutrality in terms of your thoughts, not necessarily having judgments, but you're more in an observer effect, but you begin to be more in neutrality in terms of electrical charge, in the sense that you're magnetic, in the sense so you've got equal distribution of magnetic and electrical energy. So essentially, magnetic energy is the sense that you're kind of bringing in information or attracting in information, and electrical is sort of the actioning of that. So you've got equal balance between those two charges, if you will. And by doing that, they essentially said that you're creating a continuous loop or an infinity loop of energy and frequencies. And one of the things that I was kind of feeling as this message was coming in, although it wasn't stated directly, that it helps create self-sustaining energy. So what they did say is that the tone, the frequency's tone, pushes the energy into the continuously self-sustained cycle. Which is actually really key. So self-sustaining energy. And it could be that is how, beings essentially get to evolve to a point where they don't necessarily need to feed on energy outside their own system in order to sustain life. Obviously we're, as human species, still in a place where we require feeding in order to get energy, in order to live and sustain life. Obviously we have to eat. A lot of species do on this planet. And if you kind of think about it, the sun and stars are equally sentient beings, so they're consciousness beings. And in this case, they're giving off energy, lots of energy that many around them are essentially absorbing and feeding upon. Yet even they too, can essentially pass over time. So, it sounds like this is a sort of force, or this TriWave is a force where you really can have sort of eternal energy or eternal continuous self-sustained energy. Hi, I'm interjecting this video after the fact and editing it in, but I forgot to show an image or picture related to the channeling of the TriWave and what it is. And basically, when I was channeling it, I did get an image that was very similar to other videos that will be in the reference section getting into how polarity works. When I started originally channeling the stages of ascension, I was basically given a very strong image about sort of the force that sort of drives polarity. And coming back to this, and you'll see this referenced in other videos. This is essentially, it looks like a torus field, but again, it is, let's say, a being or a unit of consciousness. And this point in the middle represents what's called the 0 point or the neutrality point. And again, through some sort of a polarity force or a force that essentially gives, let me see, it gives movement to energy through consciousness and time. Essentially, we've got action happening. So you've got sort of an intention or a thought that's sort of coming in from a non-particle space, if you will, or a non-matter space. So it, this thought is non-matter when you have it. You obviously put it, you can take it beyond just sort of thought. You essentially action it. It becomes physical. So the idea of potential energy becomes kinetic energy. And then essentially there's sort of a resulting consequence of the action where it gets integrated back into the being in terms of, okay, I've experienced something, I'm learning from it, I'm processing it, and I'm integrating it into my etheric blueprint, which goes back to the 0 point. Okay. So I'm not going to go over this whole process again because I've covered it in other videos that are referenced in the description section, which I highly recommend that you watch because this is very, very key to the ascension process. When I first channeled this, Ascended Master Hilarion referenced this whole cycle as the infinity loop, if you will. So it's the infinity path, if memory serves. And he did say that it wasn't necessarily like a looping that's going around like this. He basically said it is very much a looping that goes like this. And I'm not sure, from a physics perspective, if that's what's going on. I'm just, relaying the information that I'm getting. You have to discern for yourself what you think, resonates with you. But this is essentially, this polarity force is the TriWave. So it is that TriWave. It's the force. It's the third wave, if you will. So if you've got sort of, negative, a negative charge, and you've got a positive electrical charge. So you've got a negative magnetic charge, a positive electrical charge. The third force, if you will, is a force that's neutrality that is constantly forcing the cycle to happen. Okay. It's forcing the cycle to happen so that there's essentially, an in-breath. There's an in-breath and then an out-breath, an in-breath and an out-breath. And that point in the middle is the 0 point or the neutral point. And it's what, obviously this force, this third wave, this TriWave, so is really what enables for the movement of energy through sort of consciousness and time. So I just wanted to interject because I forgot to include this visual that came to me when I was getting information on the TriWave. Again, I just heard this like random word, and again, I saw this vision, and I knew it had to do with the concept of how that force starts to kind of push the action or the movement of consciousness through this rhythm of this sort of in-breath, out-breath. So I just wanted to pass that on, and I'll edit back in the rest of the video. Thanks, bye. Now, how it is that we get to that point, I think that the underpinning of it really has to do with the elimination of polarity frequencies. So going back to a lot of previous lessons that Ascended Master Hilarion would have provided, gets into taking more of the observer view. finding yourself not necessarily having a strong opinion or judgment either way about things that are kind of going on in your world, which is really hard. And I'm not there yet by any means. But it's essentially creating sort of that sort of balanced distribution between an electrical and a magnetic charge within your energy body. So that's essentially what's going on. So after that particular message came in around the concept of the TriWave, the group went on to say that as the human aura essentially becomes the infinity loop. Now I'm not sure what that message means. It didn't come in quite as clearly. But then after that, I got some other messages that were on a totally different topic. And they go basically, the sounds of time glow in the wind of hope. Peace is within the hearts, for that is the liberation of the soul. Sovereignty is earned through detachment of fear and developing the pillar of inner truth from the inner God Christos or unity consciousness self. So essentially, the God self, the Christos self, really is unity consciousness. So that's really what the source field is. It's the realization that it's all connected. We're all connected. It's like one common sheet, and each of us are poking up through as individual manifestations of consciousness, having a unique experience, but it's still one bed sheet, with little fingers poking up. So it's coming to the realization that when you have that sovereignty, when you have that sort of detachment of fear, because you realize that you are one with everything, and that you're sort of equal with everything, that's when sovereignty can be earned, because then you can't necessarily be controlled by others. In other words, you love yourself just as much as equally as you love everybody else. Yeah, and that's a key statement there. Then they go on to say that do not veer or deviate from that path. Follow it, for it serves you best. So that's really the key message that came through in that particular channeling. And I think the last paragraph really, builds upon previous lessons, but probably the new information was really about the concept and the naming associated with the TriWave. So with that, I hope that adds to your continued journey. And again, I'm just sharing with you everything that I've gotten along the way, because it seems too important for it to be just locked away in my little notebooks without sharing it with others. And wherever you are, have a great evening or day for whatever time zone you're in. Lots of love. Thanks. Bye.